Let me tell you, if anyone had ever asked me what silence really sounds like, I'd have told them it's the moment a kid in metal braces reaches out his trembling hand to a waitress in the middle of the fanciest restaurant in Manhattan. Yeah, that actually happened, and nobody saw it coming. You know, the kind of place where you can smell the money in the air, where every fork clink is like an orchestra note and folks whisper in 5 different languages about the stock market. Well, that's where 10-year-old Lucas Montgomery, with legs wrapped in cold metal, turned the whole room upside down by asking Diana Johnson, the only black waitress on staff, to dance with him. Not play, not sing, not bring him another fancy soda dance. The piano was doing its thing, but nobody moved. Then came the manager, Thornton, slicing through the tension with his voice. "Sir, control your son. This isn't a dance hall." And just like that, the mood went from uptight to Arctic. I swear, even the candles seemed to shiver. Richard Montgomery, big shot billionaire, sat there sweating bullets. First public dinner since the accident that nearly stole his son's legs, and now this? Yeah, let me back up a S.E. Sir Richard had spent 2 years hiding Lucas from the world after the crash, blaming himself every step, thinking the kid would break if anyone looked too long. "Lucas, sit down." It sounded calm, but it was the sort of command you don't argue with. Diana? She didn't budge, didn't even flinch, just looked between her boss, the billionaire, and this shaky little boy who refused to let go of hope. Then she did something nobody expected. She took off her apron, set it down, and smiled at Lucas. "Can't dance in an apron," she said like it was the most normal thing in the world, and she slipped her hand into his. All the old money in that place couldn't buy the look on those folks' faces. Richard shot up like a spring. "What do you think you're doing?" Diana just met his stare. "Accepting an invitation, sir." She let Lucas set the pace slow, wobbly, but his. She didn't pull, didn't guide, just followed everybody whispering, "She's done for, getting fired tomorrow." But Lucas didn't care. His face, once all fear, started shining with this raw, shy pride. For the first time since the accident, he was the one leading. In that moment, nobody else existed. Manager's voice broke the spell. "This will never happen again, sir. She'll be disciplined." But Richard was somewhere else, seeing a flash of his late wife Elizabeth dancing with Lucas in their living room, whispering, "It's not about perfection, it's about connection." And there was a kid who'd been treated like a patient for 2 years, was just a boy again, proud, not ashamed. Diana led him back, bowed slightly, and said, "Thank you for asking me out." Like he was a grown man and not a child people pitied. Richard stopped her before she left, voice low, different. "Your full name?" "Diana Johnson, sir." He handed her his card in my office. "Tomorrow, 10 a.m. That whole room was holding its breath. She took it, hands shaking, and walked out like she'd just dropped a bomb. Dinner continued in this weird, heavy silence. Richard watched his son, finally really seeing him for the first time in years. He hadn't realized what he'd lost, how much he'd ignored, until right then. Nobody noticed Diana's calm, defiant glance as she left. Not fear, not resignation, just this quiet power. Next morning, Diana walked into Montgomery Tower. Man, she looked out of place in her best-on-sale skirt and blouse, clutching that old purse. Everyone passing by looked her up and down, probably wearing more cash than she made in a month. She introduced herself to the receptionist, polite, composed. 18th floor, Miss Winters will see you. In the elevator, she was nervous, yeah, but you could tell this wasn't fear, it was the steady kind of determination you get after surviving worse than snooty stairs. Winters was all sharp lines and ice. "He had you fired, didn't he?" "Happens. Powerful men, people like you know what I mean?" Diana smiled, said, "Yeah, I know," but she asked, "And where exactly is my place supposed to be?" Winters dodged. "Phone rang, he'll see you now." Richard's office was massive, windows showing off the city like it belonged to him. He was all business, stiff as a board, making her sit and stew in the silence. "Finally, your background?" "Bachelor's, NYU, Child Development. Master's in Special Ed and Finish." His eyebrows shot up. "Waitress. 3 jobs, restaurant, bookstore, tutor." He pulled out a file, her whole life laid bare. "Freedom Steps U co-founded it. A dance program for kids with disabilities. With my sister Zoe, Diana nodded, but it's about to shut down. Funding. I didn't come here for money, Mr. Montgomery. You called me. That shook him. I want you to work for me, he said, and when she blinked, not as a waitress therapeutic companion for Lucas. He admitted it had the best specialists, but what you did yesterday, it was just a dance, but it was the first time he smiled since the accident. Diana replied, he doesn't need a dancer. He needs someone who'll follow, not lead. Richard, for the first time, seemed lost. I'll pay you 5 times what you make. Diana stood up, calm but firm. No, I don't work for people who see my color or my class first. And I won't be bought for emotional problems you can't solve with money. He flushed, shocked nobody ever told him no. That's pride. No, she said, it's dignity. Your son deserves more than someone pretending to care. She turned to leave, pausing. Lucas doesn't need more experts. He needs space to lead his own life. She dropped her card on his desk. Freedom Steps Tuesdays and Thursdays. If you want to bring Lucas, first class is free. Winters, lurking in the hall, couldn't believe it. You just turned down Richard Montgomery. Diana just smiled. Better to be crazy than property. That Wednesday, Zoe, her hijab perfectly crooked in her nerves, rushed in. There's a Bentley outside, and you won't believe who's in it. Lucas, wide-eyed, in the back seat. Richard, hands white-knuckled on the wheel. He's not coming in, Zoe said. Men like him don't. Diana just grinned. Don't underestimate a determined son. And wouldn't you know it, Lucas got out first, fiddling with his braces, and Richard awkward in casual clothes followed. Freedom Steps wasn't fancy old warehouse, handmade posters, kids everywhere, moving how they wanted. It looks chaotic, Richard muttered. There's structure, you just don't recognize it, Diana answered, turning to Lucas. Want to join? He nodded, but waited for Dad's nod. Go on, Richard said, tense. Diana led Lucas in. Zoe offered Richard a chair. First day's always hardest for parents, not kids. This isn't therapy, Richard snapped. I've hired the best. Zoe just asked gently, how's that working out? The studio door opened. Elaine Mercer, retired Harvard neuroscientist, swept in, cane and all. Mr. Montgomery, you rejected my proposals 3 times. Richard blanched. I oversee the program. We're studying how adaptive movement impacts kids' brains. Diana explained. We integrate dance with neuroscience. That's why it works. Why are you a waitress then? No funding, and because people like you said no 3 times. Realization hit. She was the co-author, not just some assistant. Richard realized Diana recognized him from the first. Was the dance staged? No. Lucas led. I followed. Suddenly, reporters showed up press day for a newly published article. You used my son, Richard accused. Diana brought him to a wall lined with photos, each kid's progress tracked, except for one empty frame. That's our future. Full center, 500 kids a year, not 50. You orchestrated all this. You left us no choice. At that moment, Lucas, in the middle of the floor, removed one brace, trying to stand on his own. Richard moved, but Diana stopped him. Wait. Watch. Lucas, concentrating, took a shaky, unsupported Steffi zone. Kids cheered, cameras flashed, and for once, Richard's face wasn't a mask but pure awe. That's why we're here, Diana said quietly. It's not about perfect steps. It's about first steps. Richard finally saw his son really saw him. You could have done this without manipulating me. We tried, you never answered our calls. Reporters noticed him now. Richard was stuck. Walk out. Stay, say nothing. Lucas, meanwhile, just kept practicing blissfully unaware. Richard looked between the boy and the cameras, knowing he was at a crossroads money couldn't fix. He faced the crowd, and for once, let humility slip in. You know what's hardest for someone like me? He said, admitting when we're wrong. Stunned silence. Then, the Montgomery Foundation will fully fund Freedom Steps for the next 5 years. Build a center, but only if MS. Johnson keeps complete control. Flashes everywhere. 3 months later, construction began. Diana was always there, Lucas too, sometimes bringing friends. Richard, surprisingly, kept showing up. No press, just watching. Didn't think you'd come to meetings, Diana joked. Didn't think I'd study neuroplasticity at 50, he shot back. They traded barbs, but a real partnership grew. No more billionaire versus Waitress, just two people learning. At the center's opening, Lucas, just one lightweight brace, led a dance with other kids, graceful, confident, free. Richard stood back, Diana beside him. He doesn't need you to hold him anymore, she said. No, Richard nodded, but he still needs me to be around. That's the difference. Thank you, he said. For what? For teaching me to follow. A reporter asked. Biggest lesson? Richard didn't hesitate. That true leaders aren't the ones dragging everyone down their chosen path, the ones who have the guts to follow when someone shows them a better way. A year later, Freedom Steps expanded to new cities. Diana won national awards. Lucas walked into regular school like Kane on rough days. Public speaker for kids everywhere. And Richard? He finally learned that real power isn't about control. It's knowing when to get out of the way. So let me ask you, what do you think? Was Diana right to push back? Did Richard finally do the right thing? When is it okay to force a reckoning? And when should we just follow? Drop your thoughts below, because, in the end, maybe the real revolution starts with someone willing to take that first step and someone else finally wise enough to follow.